coming at you on the Fancred app. Inside Baseball Live. We've got lots to chat about today. We're here to break down everything that's going on in the world of baseball. Obviously, the awards were just announced. We're going to get Heyman's take on all of that. You can see us live on the app or streaming at fancredsports.com/on-air. So if you're on the app, though, go to the upper right-hand corner. You'll see a little button that says Fan Line. If you hit that, you'll get into a green screen room with our producer, and then you can come on live and actually ask John and I any questions that you may have. It's the off season. There's a lot of stuff going on, so bring on the questions. We're here to answer it. You can also put any questions that you have in the comments, and our producer will feed those to me, and I'll get as many as I can out to John. So, John, how are you? Where are you these days? I never know where
I'm good. I'm in Miami. I'm just watching TV and seeing who's winning the awards. Very interesting.
Speaking of the awards, MVP was just announced. I want to get your take on Mookie Betts and Christian Yelich winning.
Well, the writers went 2 for 2. It wasn't very difficult. Mookie Betts had a fantastic year. Obviously, the Red Sox had a special season. He clearly deserved the MVP. In my mind, I did not have that vote. I would have had Betts first. I might have had J.D. Martinez actually second. I think 2 writers had him in the top 2. One had him first, one had him second. I might have had him second, but I didn't look at that vote quite as carefully because I did have the NL MVP vote, and, of course, I had Christian Yelich the winner. I'm not shocked that DeGrom got a vote. I thought DeGrom might actually get more votes. On the internet, he seemed to have a lot of support for first place. I think I had DeGrom 5th. All the results are on bbwaa.com, so if anyone wants to see all of my votes, they can. But I had Yelich and Baez, and I think I had Trevor Story and Arenado, 2 Rockies in there. And I know I had Turner on the ballot, and I know I had Kane on the ballot, and I think I was one of a couple that had Nola, and I might have had him 10th. But Yelich, I think, ran away with it by the end, and certainly in my mind deserved it, unless you wanted to give it to DeGrom. DeGrom, to me, was difficult. He clearly deserved the Cy Young. I know one person didn't vote for him for Cy Young. Clearly should have been the Cy Young winner unanimously. That was a mistake. It happens. We're not perfect. But in terms of MVP, he was on a losing team, and obviously the record, I think, in my mind, we're talking most valuable, comes into play a little bit. So I still had him 5th, which is not bad for a 10-9 pitcher on a losing team.
Let's go to the Cy Young. So you just mentioned DeGrom there. 10 wins this year. What does that show you about the way that baseball is going? I mean, I feel like it used to be you had to have this certain number of wins in order to be considered in Cy Young.
First of all, 10 wins. I think that shows you how the Mets went, first of all. That's not too good. No support whatsoever. I mean, he should have won. The way he pitched, he should have probably won 22 games or more. Fantastic. 1.70 ERA, which is historically good, really. But I think the wins is something that we probably put way back in terms of the stats. You look at so many other stats before you look at wins. It does count. I think I had a vote back in 1990, believe it or not. I think that was the year. And Bob Welch won 27 games, and I think I picked him first, and I think he won. And if you go back and look at the stats, if they redid it now, Roger Clemens would probably win because he had that ERA somewhere in that range, somewhere below 2. And at this point, we look at ERA, we look at FIP, we look at strikeouts, we look at innings. Wins is something that the pitcher really can't control. Obviously, DeGrom had a hustle to even get to 10-9. He had a losing or 500 record basically the whole year. Not his fault. Was the best pitcher in the league, clearly, no doubt
and
about it.
The AL winner was Blake Snell. Very similar situation. The innings pitch is something that you mentioned. 200 used to kind of be the market that you'd want to get to. He was at, I think, 180 and 2/3 or something like that. Also, a little change of the tide, you could say, when it comes to what people are looking at when they're voting.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's more the changing of the game. There aren't going to be a lot of pitchers throwing 250 innings. I mean, Max Scherzer is a rarity that he throws so many innings, and Verlander too, and you give them credit, and they deserve it. I think Verlander had 214 innings, so he had more innings, maybe a few more strikeouts, but to me, and I didn't have this vote, Snell was the best pitcher in the league. Snell deserved it. To have an ERA under 2, anything under 2 in the American League, fantastic. In the American League East, even better, facing Boston, the Yankees, all those teams. Snell, to me, was the clear winner. I love Verlander. He's a Hall of Famer. I don't want to upset Kate Upton in any way. I know she's really into it. A lot of people did support him. To me, he did better than I would have thought. I thought it was pretty clear that Snell was deserving winner this year.
What about Manager of the Year? Do you think the votes got it right?
I do. I think the voters got it right. I think Snitker probably deserved it. Probably would have gone with him. I did not have that vote. Council, Black, both deserving. Finished second and third. In the American League, I thought the three spectacular jobs. Any of them won. I couldn't really quarrel. Cora, fantastic. And, of course, the votes are in before the playoffs and World Series. If the World Series and playoffs counted, he probably would have won. But over the regular season, I agreed. I thought Bob Melvin did the best job. They had a team with the lowest payroll and, win 97 games, I think it was. Fantastic. And, obviously Kevin Cash with Tampa did very, very well as well. And if someone wanted to tell me he's the winner with 90 wins, that division, all the injuries, the Tommy John surgeries, the opener, the starter, however they did it, I don't know. I can't figure it out. I give Kevin Cash a lot of credit, but I would have picked Melvin as well.
We have so many questions rolling in. I just want to get to one thing. Obviously, Ronald Acuna Jr. won the Rookie of the Year for the National League. You, from day one, have been saying that Shohei Ohtani should win the AL Rookie of the Year. So I just want to say bravo. You were right.
Thank you. I thought I was alone, though. That's the funny thing. I thought I was all alone, and it turns out 25 people agreed with me. Basically, nobody in New York agreed with me. And, I do a show on WFAN, and they were both yelling at me, and as they have for weeks now. But Shohei Ohtani did something historic, and I felt he deserved it. I wasn't going to punish him for the injury. He still had a better WAR than Andujar. I thought was fantastic and clearly second place. But, I supported Gary Sanchez a couple of years ago. Even though I didn't have that vote, I would have voted for him. He only had 2 months. So if you have 2 months and they're spectacular 2 months, I'm okay with it. But Ohtani was historic, not just spectacular. So to me, he was the clear winner. A lot of people weren't agreeing with me, but I'll have to live with it.
All right. We have so many questions. I want to start with guessing. We always have a lot of Yankees questions coming in. Pesky is asking in the comments, what percentage do you think is Machado going to the Yankees? I know you don't like making predictions and percentages, but what do you think?
Pesky. That sounds like a Red Sox person, not a Yankee person. I don't know.
Yankees questions. That's what they want.
Okay. Well, maybe that's a description of him more than his last name. I don't know. I'm going to say Machado, 50% to the Yankees. If I had to pick, I'm going to go Yankees. Alex Rodriguez, his mentor, is still on a listing basis and technically a part of the Yankee regime. He's on TV, I know, but he wears several hats, and one of them is Yankee consultant, and he's in the middle of it, and I think he will convince them that Machado is a great guy. Now, I covered a lot of the Dodgers in the postseason. I think Machado is a very nice guy, but I personally don't love that non-hustling. I don't mind him being honest about it and telling Ken Rosenthal, I'm not Johnny Hustle, or whatever he said to him. That seemed to bother some people, including Hal Steinbrenner, the Yankee owner, that he would admit it. But to me, he didn't have to admit it. I was there. I was there in Milwaukee when he grounded to short, deep in the hole, didn't run. I was there in L.A. in the World Series, hit the ball halfway up the fence, got a single. It's clear he's not Johnny Hustle. So I think he wasn't telling us anything we didn't already know. That didn't bother me. The thing that bothers me is that he doesn't hustle sometimes. And to give somebody $300 million, and I think that's going to be the price, makes it difficult. But to me, the Yankees love the guys who want to be Yankees. And I think the word is out, and it's something we wrote about on Fancred months ago, that he wants to be a Yankee. I think if everything being equal, he'd like to be a Marlin, but obviously they don't have that kind of money. They don't have 1/3 of that kind of money. So it's not happening with the Marlins. But of all the other teams, I think he'd like to be a Yankee. A-Rod is his mentor. His family seemed to love it when he was in New York. And although he hasn't come out and said it publicly like Patrick Corbin did early in the year, the Yankees kind of know this right now. And I think that they love that. So I think that's why Machado and Corbin are right there up on the list. They love someone who wants to be in New York.
John, in our comments, said, wow, 50% Machado to the Yankees. Do you really think Cashman really wants him? or would you rather they patch until Gregorius gets back? And what would Machado in the Bronx mean for Gregorius's future? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, very interesting because the situation with Gregorius with the injury, I think he's going to be out half the year. So it kind of opened up the spot there, and you wonder what will happen. But so many different things can happen. They could move Andujar to first. They could trade Andujar. They could let Gregorius walk as a free agent after next year. They could switch positions for Torres. I mean, they're just so many variables. It's just very, very hard to predict. But it does appear that they are intent on getting an infielder, and the infielder they're going to look at first is Manny Machado. So, I mean, maybe 50% is a little high, but, I think there's only a limited number of teams that are going to be willing to spend $300 million. And we know he's already been connected to the Yankees. We know he's connected to the Phillies, but the Phillies also want Bryce Harper. So if I had to guess today, I'm going to say Harper, Phillies, and Machado, Yankees.
Josh in the comments had that very question. He said, do the Phillies prioritize Harper or Machado? So why do you think that Harper would be better off with the Phillies and Machado at the Yankees? We heard your Machado Yankees side. Why Harper to the Phillies?
I think we thought all along that Machado and Phillies made sense. The Phillies could go either way in terms of the position. They could use an outfielder, particularly if they were able to trade Carlos Santana and they move Rhys Hoskins to first base. But they'll have room in the outfield one way or another for Harper if they need to. And they certainly have room on the infield for Machado. I think because of the obvious need at shortstop or potential need at shortstop, they have Crawford, who didn't look like he was ready. Kingery really not a starting shortstop. So I think shortstop seemed to fit. Plus, all of their top executives were in Baltimore when Machado was the number 3 overall pick in 2010. And that starts with Andy McPhail, the team president. Now with Philly, you're talking about Matt Klentak, the GM in Philly, was with Baltimore. And there's about 6 or 7 guys. So the connections are there with Machado and the position is there. But at this point, with the Yankees in the mix for Machado, I'm kind of thinking Machado might prefer New York, or we pretty much assume he prefers New York. Harper, I know that the Yankees have talked to Harper a little bit, and that Harper's tried to sell him on I could play first base, and I believe he could play first base. But the Yankees, I think right now, are looking more at Machado and the pitching. So to me, Harper is probably the guy for Philly.
I want to ask you a little bit about the Diamondbacks trade market. Paul Goldschmidt and Zach Greinke both on the market right now. We have a lot of questions in the comments about Greinke, where you think he'll end up. A lot of folks wondering if you think that it could be a viable trade option for, surprise, surprise, the Yankees.
I actually don't. In this case, I don't, because when Greinke was a free agent, both the Yankees and Boston just felt at that time that he did not have the right personality for those cities. Now, Greinke has played for 5 teams, 2 of them in big markets, Los Angeles Angels, and that's really Anaheim, but Los Angeles Angels and the Los Angeles Dodgers, and he thrived in all of them. So to me, I think he can do it, but I think the teams, Boston and New York, did not want to take the risk that his personality would work in those cities. I wouldn't rule it out at this point. Some time has gone by. He performed well this year, but I would think that it's more likely it would be another team other than the Yankees or Boston for Greinke. Goldschmidt, as we wrote about on Fancred today, a little bit of a speculation. His hometown team, the Houston Astros, are a potential fit. And then other than them, maybe St. Louis could work for Goldschmidt. The first base market isn't huge, and that's the problem with that trade. Terrific player, great player, obviously great team guy, but to trade a first baseman with a year to go, you're not going to get the haul that you're expecting. And that's kind of why I think they're going to try hard, but I'm not so sure they're going to trade Goldschmidt. I think that it might be more likely that they trade Greinke. Greinke was signed when the previous regime was in there. I think that was more of an ownership decision anyway, but $105 million for 3 years. I mean, that salary just did not fit on that payroll and those revenues. The Arizona Diamondbacks have the lowest ticket prices in Major League Baseball. It does not make sense, and it never made sense for them to have the highest paid player, at least per year, as Greinke is. So it didn't make sense, and I think they're looking, and he had a good enough year where I think they could trade him. Issues are he's got 15-team no-trade list, and Of course, there are a couple teams that maybe they don't think are quite fits, and they'd probably have to pay down a little of that money with $35 million a year over the last 3 years.
How much of Greinke's contract do you think the D-backs would have to pay down to move him?
I think they'd have to pay down probably $10 million a year. If he's got $75 million for 3, I think that's workable. Kershaw got $93 million for 3, but from the Dodgers. Now Kershaw's obviously a legend. They needed to keep him, but Greinke has been healthier over the last few years. I know he's a little older, but I think he's reasonably priced at $75 million for 3 years. And as I said, he's got $105 million to go. So they might have to pay it down by about $30 million.
We have someone joining us on the fan line. Will from Charlotte. Welcome to Inside Baseball Live. Will from Charlotte. Hey, Will.
Hey, guys. Sorry, camera angle.
You're good.
Sorry. Quick question for both of you. Who is the most underrated free agent we're not talking about that has significant value in the market this year?
Good question.
Okay. I did the 35. I might have said under the radar. They're not. Nobody's really under the radar anymore. Everybody's under the microscope. But I did 35 who might be of value. We'll see. I like Jed Lowry. Had a fantastic year with Oakland. I mean, he really was a star. If you look at the WAR over the last 2 years among free agents, I think he was second to Machado, actually. So he's actually kind of a late bloomer. I was the number 3 hitter for a 97-win team. So I like him. I think some of the relievers, they're going to be expensive. Teams are understanding how important the bullpen is, and I think some of the teams, particularly the small market teams, are going to try to copy Milwaukee and put together a great pen. But give the Brewers credit. They made trades to get Corey Knebel, trade to get Josh Hader. It's not easy to do that. They found 2 great guys for the pen. That was actually Doug Melvin, the ex-GM, the previous GM, who did that. But I think teams are going to do that, and I don't blame them. I think Adam Ottavino, who performed magic to me in Colorado. And now, obviously, it's a little bit easier now to pitch in Colorado, but not that easy. And he was really dominating at times. So I like him. And, Andrew Miller obviously had a lot of injuries, but if he's healthy, he is a great, great pitcher. So that might be a good value, as might his bullpen mate, Cody Allen, who had his one off season. You might look toward a guy who had one off season. The last season really is the season that defines the contract. So I think he may end up being a bargain. But I had 35 guys who I said were under the radar potential bargains on Fancred today.
35 guys. So you can just go on Fancred and read all 35. Everything's laid out for you right there. Larry in our comments said, in your estimation, who are the Mets going to go after and how much money total do you think they will spend this offseason?
I think they're going to spend some money. I mean, I don't think they're going to get Manny Machado or go after Manny Machado in any serious way. They're going to spread it around a little more. I think they'd love to get Real Muto, but it does appear that the Marlins do not want to trade in the division. So that's not going to work out, presumably. I'm not sure they have the prospects anyway. I think their biggest moves may be in the bullpen. Their bullpen needs to be reworked completely. I don't know if they're going to bring Familia back, but Ottavino, Miller, anybody in that pen, maybe even Kimbrel, possibility. They obviously have a great rotation, but if they put a decent bullpen together, they really could be a threat. Now, obviously, they've got some work to do on the offense, too. Catcher is a spot where they didn't get too much production. Second base right now, they have McNeil, and he did a nice job batting last year, but I think they like him as kind of a utility guy. So maybe second base to look at. I'm not saying they're going to bring Murphy back, which obviously they made a mistake letting him go the first time, but now I think he's probably more first base than second base. I think they're pretty happy at first base between Alonso and Bruce, and they'll figure it out. And maybe Flores, they'll figure that out. I think they're going to stick with Rosario at short. I could see them looking in center field. So potentially they could look at A.J. Pollock. I mean, that would be a fantastic pickup for them. He's only had injury questions. When he's been healthy, he has been absolutely excellent. And on that qualifying offer, I think he made the right call, or potentially Cleveland or maybe Atlanta. any of those teams could work for AJ
You
Pollock.
just mentioned Real Muto. Why do you think the Marlins are so motivated to move him now? And what do you think they are expecting to get back for a player like him?
Well, he's got 2 years to go before free agency, so he still has big value now. Some people were critical and said they should have traded Real Muto last year with 3 years to go, but he had a very nice year. I don't think his value has gone down one iota. And if you followed what was going on with the trade talk with Washington, big asking price, and they never got it done. And it seemed like the asking price went up, and Washington kept adding pieces and kept trying and still couldn't get it done. Now, possibly part of that is the fact that it's in division, and the Marlins do not want to trade in division from what I'm hearing. So I don't think it's going to be the Mets. The Braves were rumored. I don't think it's going to be the Braves. And the Nats have been trying for a long time. I don't think it's going to be them. With 2 years to go before free agency, I think they have a clear picture right now. They are not going to be able to sign him to a long deal. I think they would like to sign him to a long deal, but it's just not happening. I mean, if you want to go back and somebody wants to, not you particularly, but somebody wants to be critical, they could say, why not keep Yelich, who had 5 years to go? That would be the one I would look at. I think they were right to trade Stanton after the 59 home runs. That was the right time to have traded D. Gordon and offloaded that $38 million and get 3 prospects back. I think they did a good job. And in fact, holding on to Real Muto, I think they're fine. I think his actually gone up because he had his best year, made the All-Star team, won a Silver Slugger, established himself as probably the best all-around catcher in the game right now. So I think his value is high, and I think they're going to do quite well. But I think that he's a big story at the winter meetings and this winter. I mean, I don't want to say I rank him higher than Harper and Machado, but he's close. Yeah. I think he's a big piece for somebody. 28-year-old catcher who's the best catcher in the game and very likely to be traded at this point.
I love Sal's question that he just asked. Would you put any weight into Harper's comments to TMZ regarding Chicago and New York, or do you think it was just a playful sarcasm? So for those who don't know what was going on, he was stopped, asked about where he'd want to play. Somehow it got related back to food. He said he loves the deep dish in Chicago and he loves the pizza in New York. So what do you think? I mean, is this just a harmless little ploy?
Harmless. Well, thank you for letting me know, because I have to tell you, I don't really follow TMZ, so I had no idea about that. I agree with him. I think deep dish is fantastic. I do like pizza in New York as well. I know my New York friends are disappointed that I actually like the deep dish better, but there's no value in Bryce Harper, and no more value in him saying it than me. It doesn't make any difference. What matters is what the teams are going to be willing to do. He'd like to go to whoever gives him the best deal, like just about any other free agent. So, there might be a little something extra for New York. We've heard that his father is a Mickey Mantle fan. He's supposedly a Mickey Mantle fan. Supposedly wears 34 because it's 3 + 4 and it's 7 from who knows. I don't know if that's true. I do know that he's talked to the Yankees a little bit, or his agent has. I don't think that it's going to happen. I don't see that. They're full in the outfield. They've got Stanton and they have Judge in the corner outfield, and he's not a full-time center fielder. So he has taken a lot of grounders at first. It's possible he could be squeezed in. We can't rule anything out, but I think that's a long shot. I mean, the Cubs are acting like they're not doing anything major, that they did their major things last year, obviously with Darvish and Chatwood. I think they spent as much or more than anybody. Maybe one other team was up there with them last year in terms of free agents. They won 95 games. I know people are lamenting that for the Cubs. I mean, for the Cubs, 95 games, people used to be celebrating in the street. So, I don't think that they necessarily are going to go after him, but I could probably see that a little bit more than the Yankees. At this point, I'm not really seeing either one, but I'm glad to hear he likes the pizza in both cities.
Yes,
it is good.
Yes, I'm glad that we talked through that. Now, we've been talking a lot about the Yankees, so we got to get a Red Sox question in there. Max in the comments asked, any extension talks between the Red Sox and Chris Sale, Mookie Betts, or Xander Bogaerts? What are you hearing?
I am sure they're going to absolutely try with Mookie Betts and Xander Bogaerts and Chris Sale. I mean, it doesn't hurt to try. Obviously, Chris Sale did the long deal, got what they call security. It's still big money when he was with the White Sox, and he is hasn't dropped off a bit. I mean, you look at his Cy Young finishes; it's top 6 every year, just like it seems like Max Scherzer top 6 every year. So I mean, he's one of the best 2 or 3 pitchers in the game. No reason not to try. The Red Sox have the money. Same with Bogarts, who had a fantastic season, got some MVP support, and Mookie Betts, 28 out of 30 votes in a league where you have Mike Trout. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment. Batting title, fantastic defense. They've tried in the past. They went to arbitration with him last year. He beat them. But I'm sure, the Boston Red Sox are a team that can afford him, and they're going to try hard. Mookie Betts would be priority number 1, but I think they'll try with all 3 guys.
There's no surprise whatsoever that they extended Alex Cora. Are you surprised on what that extension was, though? It seems like it wasn't a ton of money. I don't know all the details.
I saw it reported as 100,000 more. I'm shocked. I don't know. I'll have to see that to believe it. Yeah. I mean, the guy was incredible. And I know managers are often looked at as middle managers now, and they're not paid like they used to be. And Madden and Bochy and Socha, the last of a dying breed, making $5 million plus, and it may not happen again. No, maybe no manager is going to make $5 million again. But Alex Cora was incredible this year. He should get whatever. And if he really only got $100,000 raise, I'm shocked. I'm really not buying that because he's a pretty good strategist. I don't see him settling for $100,000 raise and giving a team option. To me, that doesn't make much sense. But I'm not him. Maybe he just loves it in Boston, doesn't want to leave, and
we'll see when all the
hardball
come out on that one. James also had a Red Sox question. He said, John, how badly will the Red Sox want to stay below that top luxury tax threshold this year? And will that handcuff extension talks?
Yeah, it's possible, but I think that they're probably pretty determined to do whatever they can for Betts to get it done. I think that you probably could squeeze it in there. You give the guy a really long deal, and the AAV comes down a little bit with a really long deal. Maybe LA did that with some players, including on a lower level. Chase Utley this year gave him a 2-year deal at $2 million instead of a 1-year deal, $2 million. It made a difference with a luxury tax, and they were able to stay under the 197. So there are little tricks that can be done, and I don't think they're going to let that get in the way of certainly a Mookie Betts contract. And I think it's difficult to think you can get all 3 guys signed. Sale to me is going to be the hard one. He's 1 year away from the jackpot, and he played it safe the first time, and he doesn't seem like a play it safe kind of guy to me. So I wouldn't bank on that one coming to fruition in terms of a long deal.
We have so many great comments coming in, but I just want to remind you all, you can jump on the Fancred app, go to the top right corner, hit fan line, and join us just live. You can chat with us if you're in your living room or out at a bar, wherever. Ask us a question live. We want to see your faces. I want to go back a little bit to the manager chat. Why do you think Dave Roberts' extension is not getting done? What's going on over there?
To me, it's a bit surprising, but you know what? When it comes to money, teams like to try to save where they can. They got David Freese back on $1 million less. As I said, they saved a little bit last year by staying under the luxury threshold and paying Utley over 2 years. So, I think that they're just not together on the money at this point. Roberts felt that, Hinch reportedly got $12 million for 4 years, and so that'd be $3 million a year. The Dodgers did have a $1.1 million team option for this year, which they picked up, which enables them to keep talking about it, knowing that they will have him back for a year. But under that circumstance, he still probably would like to get $3 million a year as Hinch got. So that would be $9 million for 3 and $10 million. So he would still be making less. We don't have the exact figures, but I do know that Roberts wants to be in the Hinch ballpark. And to me, that seems reasonable. He did about as well as Hinch. He's got the 2 World Series. Hinch won 1 World Series, lost in the championship series the other year. So they've won a similar number of rounds. Maybe Hinch won a few more games, but you could say Houston might have a little bit better team on paper, I think Hinch is a great manager. I think Roberts is a great manager. And to me, it's a fair comp. But, it's the Dodgers who are still not quite seeing it that way. And they have time to talk, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's interesting that they let Farhan Zaidi, their GM, go talk to the Giants. And now he runs the Giants baseball operations department. And we know Bruce Bochy's got 1 year to go on a $6 million a year contract, which made him the highest paid manager in the game. And Farhan Zaidi, by all accounts, had an excellent Dave Roberts. So Roberts could end up moving up the coast just like Zaidi did. And that would be quite an interesting situation, more high profile than Zaidi even, and interesting to see go from the Dodgers to the arch rival Giants. But I'm not ruling it out at this point, as they have not been able to come to an agreement. And my understanding is Dave Roberts is actually in Italy right now, so it's not going to happen this week. Maybe he'll be back next week, and they'll pick up the
sipping some of his vino in Italy. Maybe have you tried his wine?
I have not.
Oh.
No, I don't know. He's the wine guy.
Yeah. So Roberts has a wine called Red Stitch. It's fantastic. I suggest you try it.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
When my husband was with the Padres, Dave Roberts obviously was over there, and we did a barbecue ribs cook-off one day during spring training, and Dave brought all of his wine for everyone to sample, and it was amazing. So he's a wine guy.
Wow. He's multi-talented. A lot of speed, good strategy, and obviously the wine. Nice. I had no idea. I'm learning.
I'm teaching you so much. TMZ, Red Stitch. There's a lot going on tonight. You mentioned the Giants. Trevor on the comment section said, any news on the Giants? Any trades or free agent fronts? What are you hearing out there? Anything?
Well, I think they need to retool. I mean, they went for it again last year, and I give them credit for trying hard every year. But, they tried to stick together a little bit too long probably, and probably should have started revamping a few years earlier. Now they have Zaidi in there from the Dodgers, and I assume he's going to try to do something about that. Now, they had a couple of young players come up, including Pudge Rodriguez's kid, Derek, who did a nice job pitching last year, but they don't have a very, very productive farm system, shall we say, at this moment, and they need to rebuild. They don't like doing it. Their fans are very supportive. They sell out. They've won, and but sometimes you got to just, take the bullet and do the right thing. And to me, they should probably trade Madison Bumgarner. They got 3 championships out of him, and I know he's an iconic figure, just like Kershaw. Maybe not quite to that degree with the Dodgers, but obviously quite a hero in the Bay Area. But 1 year to go, I don't see them getting together on a contract. After the first contract where the team really made out and got an excellent deal, I think he's going to go for free agency. And for me, they need to retool. And the first thing would be to start with a trade of Madison Bumgarner. But that's just me talking. It takes a lot more guts to actually do it. It's easy for me to say that.
It's easy for us to say a lot of things, right, John? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rob Manfred, he was extended today. This was also announced after the new $5 billion, that's billion with a B, dollar TV deal was announced. How connected are those two? What do you think?
Well, it certainly doesn't hurt to get $5 billion. That certainly helps pay his salary and a lot more than that. So, I think that the owners like him. It's up to the owners to decide what to do. He's a very smart guy. He's done a terrific job in most respects. So no surprise that he was extended by 5 years. No big blemishes. Things are going well. I mean, you could criticize the fact that they haven't cut the time by much, that there isn't maybe as much action as we'd like on the field. There are a couple little things you can nitpick, but I mean, it was pretty obvious that he deserved the extension. And certainly $5 billion puts the owners in a little bit better mood to do it.
You just mentioned speeding up the game at all. Do you think this contract extension gives him maybe a little bit more mandate to speed up the game, whether it's pitch count or other mechanisms that he's thrown out there?
Yeah, I think all of that is still up to the union as well. The players have a say in all that kind of stuff. Anything on the field, the players are going to be able to give their speak, so to speak, and we'll see on that. He definitely wants the pitch clock. He definitely wants to do some things. He wants to, I think that a lot of people in baseball want to do something about the shifts as well. But again, the players have a say here, as it should be. They're the ones playing the game. The game is about the players. I don't think there's any question about that. I love Bill James. He made a mistake there. I think he knows that. I wouldn't repeat that mistake. Without the players, there's no game.
Well, is he comparing them to the beer vendors? Is that what it was?
I think so. I don't know. Sometimes people use hyperbole to make something of a point, but he went a little too far there. Not a little too far. He went way too far. It made no sense. The players are the game. So I think we all know that. If you're in management, you might think something different, but that's not reality. So I'm sure that he knows he made a mistake, and he is a very smart guy, and the Red Sox have done well with him, and I hope they keep him, and they just say, yeah, you know what, everybody makes a mistake here and there.
What is your opinion on the pace of game right now? Do you think that there needs to be something to speed it up, to keep it a little bit more interesting for younger viewers or families that are going to the game? What do you think?
I'd love it if the players could go the other way or bunt or something, but nobody seems to be able to do it. And I would say I'd give it another year, but really seriously think about outlawing the shift and just have two infielders on each side of the diamond, because you're really taking away a lot of offense. The shifts have been – the pitchers may sometimes complain about them, and certainly they add some hits in some cases, but for the most part, they really, really hurt the left-handed power hitter, and none of them really. I saw Justin Bohr bunt for a hit. I've seen a couple guys bunt for hits, but it's lowered the batting average by 50 points or more of a lot of these left-handed sluggers and taking a lot of offense out of the game. So to me, that would be one obvious solution, is to outlaw those extreme shifts, which has killed lefty sluggers. But I think we're probably a year away from that at least.
Victor in the comments said, do you see the Yankees trying to trade Stanton to the Dodgers to open up more money? Obviously, hopes of landing Machado and Harper. Victor.
Yeah, I just don't think the Dodgers would do that at this point. The Dodgers right now, Bill Shakin in the LA Times had a story suggesting they want to stay below that luxury tax threshold. And certainly they did a great job doing it last year. Had a little accounting trick, taking Matt Kemp and offloading Adrian Gonzalez and Kazmir and McCarthy, and it worked fabulously. And they've reset their tax, which makes you think they're willing to spend. But, according to some paperwork that they found, there are now some questions about how willing they are to spend. And I will say that this regime under Andrew Friedman has done a terrific job, but they have not gone for that big player. They did look at Stanton last year, ultimately didn't play on it for that very reason of the luxury tax situation. But he's been there for a few years now, and they didn't play on Scherzer when they had a chance. They have not played on really Darvish. I think they made an offer, but it was not close to what the Cubs made, from what I understand. They just do not go for that big ticket thing. I mean, you took Andrew Friedman out of Tampa, but he still operates with those kind of contracts and goes for depth. And, he doesn't go for that major superstar. And, there might be something to be said for that. They made it to the World Series 2 years in a row. So I think that's probably a long shot. But, Stanton, that'd be the one team where he would approve a trade probably. I don't think he would approve a trade anywhere else at this point, because he got to his second choice.
Keep the comments and questions coming in, please. Two softball. First one is going to be about the Yankees. Do you see the Yankees? A lot of people, Yankees and Machado. Do you see the Yankees pushing for a Machado signing soon as a precursor to trading Andujar for Corey Kluber?
Yeah, I think the free agent really decides the timing of this, and I'll be surprised if any of these free agents go soon. But Machado, as we've said, we believe that New York is his first choice. So he may not be playing for every last dollar as most of the big-time free agents do. So I guess that's a possibility. The Indians, if they trade Kluber, I think they need to really beef up the outfield. Right now, outfield was really their weakness last year, and they're losing Brantley and Chisenhall and Melky Cabrera. So they definitely need outfield. The infield is the one place they were strong. So I'm not sure that Andujar for Kluber really works. And I think the Indians would probably look for multiple pieces and an outfielder back in any trade for those type of players. The free agency is easier to do than the trades, and I think the Yankees are most likely to wind up with Corbin and Happ. That'd be my guess right now. There are other possibilities. They've talked about Paxton, as we know. They like Carrasco as well as Kluber, but trades are more difficult. Cleveland doesn't absolutely have to trade one of those guys. I do think Paxton will be traded, but there are a lot of teams in the mix in terms of trades, maybe even more so than a big free agent like Corbin, because every team has prospects. Not every team has $100 million lying around.
Not every team does. There's cell number 2 has a question about San Diego. Any word on what moves the Padres are going to make?
Well, I think they want to look at third base a little bit. So we'll see what they do. Maybe they'll get Hosmer's old friend Moustakas back. They definitely need a shortstop, but that's short term. Their top prospect is Fernando Tatis Jr., who they expect to be a shortstop. But I believe he's still a teenager, and he's coming off an injury, and he hasn't played AAA yet. So they'll probably sign back either Galvis or look for Iglesias or Echeverria, somebody like that for shortstop. Short term, they could do something a little bit bigger, like a Moustakas. As I said, I don't think they're going to do anything as big as they did last year with Hosmer, but they are shooting at 2020, but I think they wouldn't mind stepping it up a year, because the losing gets old after a while, and they still lose a lot of games in San Diego. They have good prospects. Maybe they're willing to trade some of those prospects. Francisco Mejia, catching prospect. They have Hedges behind the plate, who's really good defensively. So I could see them shipping Mejia, who they got from Cleveland, in a trade. And, they have a lot of very good pitching prospects and young pitchers. Lucchesi did a nice job last year. And they have several that really, really look pretty good from the pitching standpoint. Lauer. So they could do something interesting in terms of a trade. They may try to jump their timetable up from 2020 to 2019. I wouldn't be shocked about that.
Jeff in the comments asked, is there any sense on the Indian side in trying to get Santana back?
They weren't going to go for that $20 million a year. It'd have to be paid way down to begin with. I'd be surprised. Right now they have Encarnacion. I think they wouldn't mind even trading Encarnacion. I don't know how likely that is. It looked like a good deal at the time, but that type of player value has kind of decreased. Santana for the Phillies probably was a mistake at this point. Rhys Hoskins should have stayed at first base. He was adequate at first base, terrific hitter, cornerstone player. They shouldn't have made him try to go out in left field. He did it, not well, and they're trying to rectify it. So they need to find a spot for Santana that would be better for everybody than have him play some first, some third. Their infield, their defense was weak enough without having Santana play a lot of third base. I think that'd be a real risk. So it would be good if they found a spot for him, but I'd be shocked if it's Cleveland.
You're talking about the emergence of bullpen arms and how important teams are valuing the bullpen. So do you think the market is contingent upon the starting pitching market establishing first, so values could be set there, or how do you see that playing out?
No, I think the relief market is really going to be robust. And as it was last year, of course, last year you could say that most of the relievers that were signed ended up being overpays and not contracts that the teams are really necessarily thrilled with. I think that Philly, who signed 2 players, I thought they overpaid. Those were 2 of the better ones. Hunter performed close to that $9 million a year, maybe not quite. Neshek performed well, close to the $8 million that he signed for per year. But Colorado did not get really what it wanted out of Shaw and re-sign of McGee, and even Wade Davis, who's a terrific reliever, signed for a record deal per year, did not quite pitch up to that contract also. But I think the success of the Brewers and the emphasis on the bullpen means that teams will be focused on the pen, and there is a great crop of relievers out there, starting with obviously Kimbrel. His agent David Meter says he's the best closer of all time, statistically anyway. I mean, if you have to probably put the words statistically anyway in there, because I think most of us know Mariano Rivera is the best closer of all time, but statistically, Kimbrel has him beat in some areas, the whip, the ERA, the OPS against, things like that. So Kimbrel's at the top, but wow, it's a good list. I mean, obviously Zach Britton was the best closer in baseball a couple years ago. Looks like he's now fully recovered. Ottavino, incredible talent. Juris Familia, great talent, actually performed well in Oakland. David Robertson, who was a closer and could still close, was very good for the Yankees last year. The relief list is very, very long and very good, and I expect they will all do quite well.
Do you think this is a case where some guys sit back and wait for those big names to sign so they can, try to get a contract that's somewhere close to where they're at?
Yeah, I don't. If you wait for the big names to sign, you may be waiting a long time. I mean, Scott Boras represents Bryce Harper. He's not one to sign quickly. I'd be shocked if he signed quickly. I don't think you can wait for the big stars. You got to get what you can get when the timing is very hard to predict. So you got to get it when you can. I know that people are saying things are moving slow, but keep in mind that the only stars big stars I can recall signing in November were two guys who signed right at Thanksgiving, which was Bernie Williams re-signing with the Yankees after 1998. Did about the same. I think they bid $1 million more, and he wanted to go back to New York, and he went. And Torrey Hunter got a big deal from the Angels, well above what anybody else was willing to pay, and he also signed right at Thanksgiving. So we're not to Thanksgiving yet. So I don't, I'm not going to read too much into the fact that few guys have signed yet. It's still very early in the game. A lot's going to happen at the winter meetings, as it always does. But to wait on Machado and Harper, I think might be waiting a while, particularly Harper.
What about a guy like Nathan Eovaldi? Do you see him more valuable as a starter or a bullpen arm?
Well, generally, starters get paid more. So, he's a guy, I got to give him credit. What a gamer to go out there and throw into the sixth inning in relief after having pitched game 1 and 2. And so much has been said about it. He deserves every accolade that he gets. A guy with 2 Tommy John surgery who's about to be a free agent. As Alex Cora said, his agent's going to kill him. Well, you know what? Eovaldi didn't complain. He did it. He was a World Series hero. He may not have been the MVP, but he was one of their MVPs, and he deserves whatever he gets, and give him credit. Terrific guy for a team. I think he's going to do spectacularly. The only thing that can hold him back is what the medicals might say. But we saw him on the mound throwing 101 miles an hour in the World Series. He looked fantastic. I think he's going to do really well, and it likely will be as a starter. But he could be a back-end guy as well, and it wouldn't shock me. He certainly fits that, throwing 101 miles an hour with great breaking pitches. So he could be the back end guy. But I think that most guys who have the choice go to be a starter, and that's more likely what he would do.
They want that starting money. Frank in the comments said, Syndergaard for Goldschmidt. Who makes out better in that trade?
Well, Syndergaard has a couple years to go, whereas Goldschmidt's only 1 year. So to me, well, if they had the same number of years, I would go with Goldschmidt and say that the Mets may get better. But in that trade, I would go with Arizona because Syndergaard has 3 years to go, whereas Goldschmidt only has 1 year to go. That's basically it.
Mark in the comments asked, could Irvin Santana end up with the White Sox?
Well, to me, to predict the White Sox, I have no idea what they're going to do. They're very unpredictable. They went and got a closer, David Robertson. Nobody expected that, $46 million. They were connected to Machado last year when nobody thought they would be a contender, and they weren't. They lost 100 games. And to me, they're still rebuilding. They're still in a deep rebuild. They're not ready to win. I don't get their connection to Harper and Machado. Doesn't make much sense to me. To predict what the White Sox are going to do, I mean, I just couldn't do it. And Santana, I think, he didn't make my 35 under the radar potential bargains, but he could be one of those guys. I mean, he basically didn't pitch last year due to a finger. You wouldn't think a finger would be career threatening. You have to expect him to come back. He was pretty durable before last year, and I think he'll be a good signing for somebody. But it's difficult to predict where he might end up unless you look at past teams that he's been on, past pitching coaches, something like that. But White Sox, I'm never going to predict what they're going to do because I never get it.
Victor asks, where do you think Sonny Gray fits the best? Have you heard anything on his front?
I think Sonny Gray would fit with the Reds. His old pitching coach was Derek Johnson in Vanderbilt. They're very close. That's why it was speculated he might go to Milwaukee last year and why Milwaukee tried to trade for him a couple of years ago. He's clearly going to be traded for whatever reason. He didn't fit with the Yankees. Terrific guy, great talent. He could easily go back to Oakland. He did very well there. They need starters. The Reds need starters, but the Reds they loved Harvey as well, who did nicely for them last year. And they've actually talked about Paxton and Kluber and Carrasco and that whole group. But to me, the Reds, they're probably not ready to win. So to trade Hunter Green or Nick Senzel, their top two prospects, or either Taylor Trammell, their outfield prospect, I wouldn't do it if I'm them. I think more likely I would look to either re-sign Harvey or make a trade for Gray, which you wouldn't think you'd have to give up one of those three big prospects to get Sonny Gray at this point.
Joe in the comments said, what are the odds of the Yankees trading for Paxton or Kluber?
Well, like I said, I think they're going to most likely go for the free agents. They reset to lower their tax, and I could see them buying the free agent starters. I like, for them, Corbin. They love him, lefty, big strikeouts, fifth in the Cy Young. From Syracuse, he already announced that he was a Yankee fan. He grew up as a Yankee. His whole family's Yankee fan. They love that kind of thing. So to me, Corbin's the guy they want. Happ, they had him. He fit. He did well. He won almost every game that he pitched for them. And to me, that combination, Corbin and Happ, makes sense. It's possible they go for Eovaldi. They had him at one point. They loved him. Obviously, they saw what he did for the Red Sox. Wouldn't mind taking some away from Boston. So I think those are the most likely. I would put the trades slightly less likely, but obviously Paxton would be somebody they'd be interested in, as are Kluber and Carrasco with the Indians. I'm not sure the Indians are going to trade Kluber or Carrasco. They got a pretty darn good team now. Could they take a step back and still win that division? Probably. Do they need to cut from $145 million? Well, I don't know their budget, but I would guess that they probably do because their revenues aren't great. So it's possible that they do trade one of those guys, but I don't think there's any guarantee that they make a trade. Whereas we know Corbin's going to sign with somebody. We know that Happ's going to sign with somebody. We know the Yankees like both guys and they like free agents. And that's why I'm going with Corbin and Happ for the Yankees.
Sticking with.
I'm sticking with it.
Mark in the comments said, and we only have a few more minutes, so if you have any questions, get them in right now. Mark said, what would it take for the Yankees to trade Andujar?
Well, first of all, I think they'd have to sign Machado, probably. I don't think they really want – I saw a lot of things during last year that they don't really like Andujar and they're willing to trade him. I mean, I think there was a point they liked Gleyber Torres more, a little bit younger, maybe a better defender. Not maybe, is a better defender. For me, I like Andujar better. I know he's a work in progress defensively. I like the guy. I think they like him. I don't think they're anxious to trade him. I mean, is it possible they can move him over to first? If Voit doesn't work out, they could do that. But I think to even consider it, you'd have to get a big-time infielder in here. I mean, you've got Gregorius, who's out for half a year. And, I think maybe if they sign Machado, at that point, they could think about trading Andujar. But without that, I don't see
What is it about him that makes you like him better?
I think he's a very serious young man who's really determined to be a great player. And he certainly was this year. And I know people were on me because I picked Ohtani instead of him for the Rookie of the Year. It doesn't mean I didn't like him. I think he's fantastic. He had a great season for them. He was a great threat. I know that Alex Cora told people that, other than Judge, that was the guy that they feared with the Yankees. And I can understand why. Terrific hitter who piled up the extra base hits, and he's going to be a great hitter for his entire career.
I think we need to finish this off with probably my favorite question of the night, and it comes from Joe. Joe asked, what is the best book you've read this year?
The best book I read this year? I read I'm a big tennis fan. I read the Jimmy Connors book. Does that count? I mean, I have to get a baseball book.
No, it doesn't have to be a baseball book.
Yeah, I'm a big tennis fan, so I read Jimmy Connors'
You want to see the best book I've read this year?
I think it's a couple years old.
I don't know if you can see this. 12
What's
hours.
that?
So sleep 12 hours by 12 weeks. That's the best book I've read this year. I'm going to try to get my newborn to sleep 12 hours by 3 months old.
12 hours in a row? Good luck.
We could do it.
12 hours you could do, but that's over more of a month than in a row, I think.
Parenting 101. You read the book, it happens. That's what I'm told.
Is that right? Okay. Good luck. Good luck with that. I don't know if that's going to work out for you.
We'll see. If it works, I will post that book all over my social media.
All right. Excellent. I like that. They'll be very appreciative of that.
If you can get a newborn to sleep, I think that's the biggest thing. Well, this has been fun. You took a million baseball questions here. I'm glad we finished on a random one. And fans, if you're watching, don't be afraid to ask the random questions. You never know what you're going to get from us. So, John, thank you so much. I hope you have some time at home to relax. I know you've been traveling around like a crazy person. Anyone that's watching, make sure to tune in next week right here. Download the app. Come join us live. Ask any questions you want face-to-face with us. That's what this is all about. And keep those good comments and questions coming throughout the week. We can read them up and make sure we can answer them next week. So please join us next week. Fancred Inside Baseball Live. John, have a great Thursday. Bye.
You too, Jenny. Good to see you. Thank you.